what a game we have in store for you, lovely folks. It is going to be Shunsuke Minami versus Hirofumi Kimura. What a way to kick off day 2.
Yeah, immediately we have the showcase of the Calyx Groudon, just as with the caster prediction being shown here on Shunsuke's side here, with Imprisoned Calyrex this time around, which is gonna be very valuable, especially if you're able to really trap it together with the opposing Calyrex Ice Rider. Next to that, we have the standard Smeargle, we have Chi-Yu, and way more things that we will be talking about quite soon as this game will be unfolding as well.
Yes, exactly. It's just generally speaking, very fast paced that we're going to be hopping into the matches we've been told by production, but there's a lot of cool things to break down into these two teams, which we're going to be seeing right now. Game 1 leads are already out. You see our trainers are already in selection process of the turn. The board state looks like double Smeargle as well as double Sunsetter. We're going to be seeing it from Shunsuke's side of things.
Yeah, we are spotting here the Smeargles. Well, one of these Smeargles does have the Fake Out, while the other one does not. Actually opting for the Spiky Shield, but we have the immediate Flame Charge coming out from the Koraidon into that Smeargle. Not quite enough for a KO, but a Spore proving that the Smeargle on Shunsuke's side is the faster of the two. Oh wait, this is Hirofumi's side. Will be able to put the opposing Smeargle to sleep, and it will be taking its first turn. And the Groudon is showcasing that it is the slowest Poke on the field, as the Precipice Blades is hitting both targets, but missing the KO on the Smeargle, of course, because it is carrying that Focus Sash just as well.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how scratched up your Japanese is, Shimon. Mine is not as much. I wasn't able to actually pinpoint the boost there from either Moody, from either Smeargle. But what we've got is the Groudon, just essentially very, very healthy. Koraidon's taking a bit of damage right here, whilst both Smeargles been damaged. But most importantly, we've got Shunsuke's Smeargle that has been put to sleep. So it's going to be a bit awkward if we're going to see Hirofumi try to go and take advantage of the Smeargle that he can still go for another Spore for.
Yeah, we do have the switch out from the Smeargle, switching out to that Calyrex Ice Rider, trying to make sure to keep that pressure up with the potential Glacial Lance a little bit later, as its ability is activated. As Smeargle on Hirofumi's side is switching just as well, trying to maintain that because, of course, Smeargle is the best Pokemon to have as a support, maybe even later on. Flame Charge going into that Calyx, doing 50%. Wow.
Wow, that is a lot of damage, especially because there's no Terra available as well. But Precipice Blades immediately following suit, not enough to pick up the KO on the Koraidon. And because the Landorus has switched in right now for that Smeargle, it's going to be completely immune to it.
Yeah, immune, and also quite threatening, because this Groudon is, of course, that Terra Fire, which players have been using quite a bit. So it is still fearful of a Flare Blitz, from example, from this Koraidon, but it will have to respect the Earth Power that could just as well come out from this Landorus. So the speed is definitely on Hirofumi's side, but Shunsuke might be able to mitigate and try to see how to get his bulky Pokemon here on top here at the end of this turn.
Yeah, exactly that, and you got to try to factor in whether to try to sack a Pokemon right now in order to be able to bring in another quite fresh from the back. But Koraidon opting to go on the defensive, as we see the Earth Power is enough to pick up the KO onto the Landorus, thanks to what was a surprisingly powerful Flame Charge non-Terra from the Koraidon the turn prior, and you see the focus, the targeting from that Groudon, just wanting to make sure you can finally nip off that Koraidon, perhaps in order to open up the Bat Pokemon from Shunsuke's side, because this Landorus has been absolutely left untouched and taken advantage of this scenario, because if you are the Groudon, you've got to commit with the Heat Crash, but it may not be enough to pick up the KO unless you commit with the Terra, which surely is such a dangerous thing to do when you're faced up against a Landorus.
Yep, exactly. As she said, and we do have Shunsuke thinking about what they could bring in. It is potentially the Smeargle, but we've seen that it's still asleep. It's only taking its first turn. But opposed to that, it is the Chi-Yu right now. Okay. It is coming out in full force with the Choice Scarf in the sun. giving the potential to go for a very strong heat wave. We can't forget that the Koraidon does have a double speed boost from the 2 flame charges that it's gotten, so it will be faster than the Chi-Yu, but the Chi-Yu does manage to have the option to potentially go for Terra Ghost, making sure that it's not getting hit by a low kick. But then again, Chi-Yu, rather small. Low kick, not that much base power when your Pokemon is when your target is that small in that regard. So might be able to consider just not tearing and just going in the all offensive power that Chi-Yu has, because Beads of Ruin Chi-Yu, one of the scariest things to have in the sun.
Yeah, this is such a good shout out as well that you made, Shmon. The sort of 50-50s on whether you're going to commit with the Terra Ghost or not in anticipation of that Fighting type move, even though, like you said, the lower kick will mean it's going to be lower base power, but you never know with the Chi-Yu because it's that weak when it comes to its physical defenses. But the Terra Water comes out from the Landorus, and the low kick is targeting the Groudon, actually, and we see the Snarl connecting with both targets, actually picks up the KO on the Koraidon, and most importantly, is going to be lowering that damage output from the Landorus. It is now at -1 special attack, but it is still enough to pick up the KO. There's no Assault Vest there, and if there was, it may have been enough to allow itself a bit more room, but this then in turn means Hirofumi brings in a disruptor of sorts of his choice. He's got the Smeagol, and as we had a little bit of a sneak peek, he's going to be bringing the Incineroar. You've got that Intimidate if you are anticipating any other Pokemon, that which is just going to be a Smeagol. The importance here is you've got Fake Out online. Technically speaking, from Shunsuke's side, you do have Fake Out, but your Smeagol needs to wake up.
Yeah, that's a big ask, of course, for a first turn wake up from this Smeargle. But let's take a look if it is possible. But no, just seeing the end here, forfeiting this game, and then considering what the new option is for this game too, because immediately we saw already that Hirofumi's Smeargle was able to be faster, maybe a potential speed tie. So the Spore was really important there, immediately being able to shut down that Smeargle as well, giving not a lot of options to, not a lot of room to breathe really, where your Groudon is able to go on with his offensive onslaught really.
Yeah, so it really goes to show the importance of being able to try to get as much damage as possible, as quick possible, I guess, because the fact that Koraidon's able to go ahead and relatively freely not get directly threatened by Shunsuke's side and get those flame charges going. You've got the speed boost, you can now outspeed the choice stuff. Chi-Yu, you're not threatened by it. It's cool as long as you're able to get the damage that you require. I think it was a total of 3 attacks that it was allowed to be dealt without even terrestrializing. That's already too much space that Shunsuke is allowing for Hirofumi to take advantage of. So I guess going into this, what are your thoughts, Shmon, when it comes to adaptations from Shunsuke's side?
I do think you make a valid point there. We do know that Shunsuke's side, Smeargle did have Fake Out, so maybe you could have gone for that. You could have considered that, but that is of course another risk that you're carrying, because if you Fake Out one of the 2 targets and it is the wrong target, for example, it is going into that spiky shield, or it is going to that Koraidon, and then the Smeargle is able to Spore again, then you're in that same position again. But let's take a look what the adaptations will be, because unfortunately I'm not playing right now, but I'm quite sure that they have considered the options here. So it is going to be that Calyx Ice Rider together with the Smeargle this time from Hirofumi's side, while from Shunsuke's side, while from Hirofumi it is going to be that Koraidon and Smeargle.
Yeah, so it's just going to be playing it back at least the same from Hirofumi. So we got the adaptation from Shunsuke with the Calyrex being brought. We know that it doesn't have Protect. It does have Trick Room, High Horsepower, Imprison, and Glacial Lance. So most likely looking to go for the Fake Out play and maybe even a cheeky Glacial Lance if it's not expecting Terra. But the thing is, there is still a Smeagol that's allowing for support from Hirofumi's side via the means of the Spore. So Shunsuke has a very important decision to make here.
Yeah, this is going to be quite an important turn. Look, just like last game where Smeargle speed ties can be quite important. Also, the Spore targets can be just as well, because you could potentially switch in to a different Pokemon which have the safety goggles. For example, on the Incineroar, for example, Shunsuke doesn't have any switches. I just noticed as we have the Terra coming out from the Koraidon this time fully committing to its fiery bit.
Oh, that is for sure. It's going to be going for the absolute most damage it can, clearly trying to target down that Calyrex, which we know has Terra Fairy as an option. Okay, it could get outside of the weakness to the fire type, but then again, you needed... Oh, actually, apologies. Seems like it is Terra Water in this confirmed situation, which actually is the best Terra type you would want in this scenario, as Spiky Shield from Hirofumi's Smeagol means it really doesn't want any of this kind of heat aside from it. And there's a focus of the fake out spotted quite nicely there, Shmon, going into which breaks the focus sash, and you see the low kick not even opting to go for the fire type move, wanting to just try to guarantee at least around 50% worth of damage onto it.
Yeah, as the booty drops and raises are happening again. Unfortunately, we are quite unclear what is happening, but a minus speed drop would come in quite handy as the trick room has been set up for it. We do have the Smeargle on Shunsuke's side with the Ice Rider does have Decorate, so it is able to, for example, decorate the Calyrex, go for a high horsepower in that regard, or even go for a potential Spore in that regard, because of course that is something that you should be fearful of as well. Certainly, because the Terra has been used, so Terra Grass Smeargle is no longer an option.
Yeah, exactly that. And given Smeagol's, naturally speaking, they do, these kind of sets in particular, tend to speed tie as well, so there's an additional layer of mind games to be had there. So at this point, it's quite unorthodox for a Koraidon to be under Trick Room conditions. It makes it a bit more vulnerable, especially since this Calyrex does have high horsepower, and we know that the Smeagol has Decorate, so depending on what speed boost may or may not have taken place there, it could actually allow a strategy of Decorate going off first before Glacial Lance comes out.
Yeah, we have the switch out from Smeargle into that Incineroar with the safety goggles, making sure that Spore is not gonna happen, and also a beautiful switch in for that Glacial Lance, because it is of course resisting that target. Koraidon going with the Protect and trying to make sure that it also did not get spored, in fact, by the Smeargle. We saw the Smeargle actually move last, so there could have just as well been a speed drop there. That we are quite unsure about, but like because it was slower than the Calyrex, that might just be trained that way, or it might just be the speed drop. But I do think I just saw that it was a speed drop, in fact. So with that, you have the options to go for Decorate, for example. We saw already that low kick did a lot of damage, but as long as Incineroar is on the field with that fake out, it is able to provide support enough so that this Koraidon can even attack within this Trick Room.
Yeah, and it seems like it's actually scared the Calyrex completely off and back into its little Pokeball, forcing Shunsuke actually to go for the double switch here, maybe wanting to absolutely shift the board state by bringing that Raging Bolt alongside the Groudon. You got these sort of ancestral type of behemoths on the other side of the field. Flare Blitz going into the Raging Bolt. It's going to be able to absolutely handle that like a champ, especially because of the fact that the Sun is still in play on the field. Low kick dealing so much damage, about 55 to 60% worth on the Groudon, but the situation remains the same, at least in terms of Trick Room still being up. However, the Incineroar may actually be able to get a cheeky KO onto the Groudon if there's no Terra option from it.
Yeah, Flare Blitz is of course boosted in the Sun, and together with this Groudon and this Kyogre, the Sun will definitely be on the field. All of these Pokemon on the field are loving the sunlight right now, as they are able to just go for a very strong Fire type move just as well. So we just have the interesting part where the Groudon is of course able to potentially survive a Flare Blitz if it does go for that Terra, as you mentioned. But it will all depend on what the read is made by Shunsuke, as we have the Koraidon switching out, seeing that no, I'm not letting this stay in. This is the time for my Smeargle to come in, as the Groudon is protecting itself.
Yeah, and it's a good time to be able to do it because it means you've got the fake out available in the subsequent turn as well. And clearly the Incineroar trying to target down the Groudon there as well is unsuccessful because of the Protect. Thunderbolt, though, is enough to pick up the raw KO. That's the power of Photosynthesis alongside the Life Orb too. So it just absolutely creates such a powerful offensive wall breaker that just, as we saw, broke down Incineroar's defenses there, forcing Hirofumi now to be on the back foot, 4 versus 3 deficit. And we did see that Smeagol got a special defense up and defense down Moody Boost.
Yeah, and with one more turn of Trick Room remaining, you are perfectly able to just try and go for a fake out with the Smurgle, trying to make sure that your Landorus is able to just stay safely onto the field. Groudon should commit a full-on Terra Fire Heat Crash if they want to try and KO the Landorus. But in that regard, if the Landorus just goes for a cheeky Protect in that regard, then the Landorus can then punish that in the consequential turn afterwards with a strong Earth Power or even Sandsear Storm, because both the targets are weak to it as the Rage Bolt is opting to switch out.
Yes, and the Calyrex Ice Rider switches in, of course. Previously had Terrestrialized to the Water type too. So Calyrex really loves being under Trick Room, but we're starting to run out of Trick Room turns, so this isn't the situation that Shunsuke would have really liked to be in. Forced to do a double switch right now as well. Smeagol being brought back onto the field. Follow me from Hirofumi's. Smeagol will not do much as the Earth Power on Contraire will do so much more. Picks up the KO onto the Smeagol, forcing a 3 versus 3 scenario right now, as we will be seeing the Trick Room turns shortly expiring, if not already.
Yeah, expertly moved by Hirofumi, trying to scale out and time out the Trick Room turns, because now we know that Groudon already has taken a massive amount of damage from this low kick, same as his Calyrex, and then there's only this Raging Bolt left, which is really not liking the fact that there's a Landorus incarnate right now, being able to use its full potential as one of the best ground special attackers right now, being able to threaten a KO on either of these slots. You can go for a Sandsear Storm and maybe potentially get a KO on either Pokemon, but you're risking the miss in that regard, and I'm not one to play a lot with that, so I tend to just, go with it for a follow me with the Smurgle, trying to make sure that at least the Landorus is able to get 2 hits in potentially.
Yeah, you want to try to minimize the amount of times that you roll the dice, per se, especially when it comes to a scenario where you feel that you don't have to in particular. And we see the actual instant forfeit from, I believe, Hirofumi. Oh, sorry, not Hirofumi's side. Of course, it was a Shunsuke that forfeited. That means Hirofumi was able to win 2-0. And to what a great extent. You'd feel like there were so many back and forths between both of our trainers, but Hirofumi felt like he had that grasp on the game that tiny bit more.
Yeah, just expertly, earlier, the Trick Room. The Trick Room was up, but still being able to be in a commanding position. You had the fake out pressure. You had the low kicks that did massive amount of damage. Koraidon actually putting in a lot of work, because we've seen collision course time and time again, because it's a very good move. It's a very strong move with no drawbacks. Then you have close combat, which is just a little bit stronger, but you have those drawbacks again. And then now the most natural way of progression is low kick. With all of these heavy targets, low kick will make sure that you hit these heavy targets like Groudon, like Calyrex, for a lot of damage. Like doing 50% to either of those targets is an amazing on its own, because let's be honest, these Pokemon tend to survive 4 to 5 hits, but suddenly Koraidon is on the field, he kicks your shins, and suddenly you can only take 2.
Well, exactly, and that's sort of the meta adaptation I think we've seen in a very similar fashion to Iron Hands several formats ago, I'd say, where we started seeing in the Regulation G format, for example, we started seeing the narrative shift from the close combats, from the drain punches, to actually just chuck a low kick, and clearly seeing the same being done by Hirofumi in this case, which clearly identified it to such a great extent. But commiserations, of course, to Shunsuke Minami, doing such an incredible job as well. If I'm not mistaken, they may also be known as Elizabeth, the nickname of which we've seen has been such an integral team builder in the Japanese community, clearly having influence over on the western side of the VG hemisphere when it comes to the influence. Even one of their games being led by Victor Medina back in LAIC, reaching the finals versus Marco Silva. So huge props, of course, to them. They've done an incredible job. They've got an incredible team, very creative with the Calyrex Ice Rider Imprison, which we've seen pop off every now and then, but bringing it to the point where it does such an incredible job is always fantastic to see.
Yeah, that's just one of those things where Calyrex can showcase how amazing prowess it has, but we haven't seen the Calyrex even from Hirofumi's side, because that was another level of thinking, of course, they have to respect my Calyrex being able to imprison them just as well.
Yeah.
And then imprison just being one of those things that can just completely shut down your Calyrex, which is a scary thing to say at the very least. And I was kind of hoping to seeing the Smurgle action with Ruination in that regard.
I know.
Yeah, but like it's still very like we have seen plenty of Smurgle action at the very least. Spiky Shield, a very cool tech, trying to make sure that you break the focus sash on the opposing Smurgle or any other Pokemon to just get a little bit more of that chip, which can give you bring you to the end potential of winning a game, as we have just witnessed just as well. So that's just a step further with the Smurgle metagaming.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think the fact that we're reaching the points where this was the first out of 2 additional Swiss rounds, you've got one more set if you are Shunsuke in order to try to get in there and hope to try to make it through the top cut. At this point, I'm not sure of the statistics and the probabilities right now, but Hirofumi is looking in a really good spot to keep on going for top cut. So huge congratulations to them as well. 8 wins, 1 loss. Fantastic performance.
Yeah, absolutely. These players have been strong time and time again. We've seen so many great matches, but there is way more to come as we will be back shortly with our following around. Now, you can take this time to get a refreshment, go over to the other stream, to the main stream. Maybe there's still some VG action going on. And then we will be hoping that you come back and check in on this side stream as we will be missing you. And we'll see you in just a bit.
We will.